what would you say are the top three things that made a difference for you working with them?
That's an interesting question. I think I want to start with some technical skills because actually, like, I knew how to use Tableau, but I think before starting this job, I never knew how to actually build business related dashboards in Tableau, like production dashboards. And I think my first dashboard I've been creating for almost 3 months. The first dashboard ever on this job. I was lucky because like the stakeholders were internal ones. So, there was no rush and I just took my time and I was like rebuilding everything from scratch. And to this day, I still think it's one of the best dashboards I've ever created. So I was I think I was incredibly proud to get this kind of technical advancement from the team because, this is what brought me to the moment I am today. Another thing, I think it's the desire to learn because we had lots of different tools and lots of different sources you can do. And originally, my job only included building dashboards in Tableau. But when we started, step by step, try to build some kind of like data tables, like data marts for these dashboards, we were trying to, expand our areas of responsibility just by learning new things and just by adapting these things. And I think the third one is that the best solutions usually come from something very simple and something very unpredictable, because we had one guy in the team and he would always come up with some very interesting ways to solve a problem about which I would probably never think of. And I was like remembering just like, oh my God, how could you think of it? And that gives you, like some kind of understanding that sometimes you have to try. The first solution that comes to your mind it cannot be the best one. And even if it's the most complex one, again, it can be not the best one. Sometimes there are things which you can achieve with doing very small things or very something unexpected, like building an extension or building, something very unusual.
Do you have an example?
Yeah, I think we utilized a couple of work tasks with creating extensions, browser extensions. And I would never thought of doing things like that in the data team, honestly. Helping people to navigate for some of their internal tools, for some of the things which it mostly, helps with like onboarding. It helps with, with like understanding how the systems work. And yeah, you're like, okay, we can build the dashboard, but at the same time, we can build an extension on top of the dashboard, which would allow you to, close it anytime. It can work better, etc. Yeah, I think extensions was like the coolest part.
Wow, that sounds very cool. I never built an extension, but I was part of a data engineering thing for a long time. So very cool, I think.
Solve so many different things with extensions, and at the same time with ChatGPT, it's kind of easy to create a new extension. So some very simple routine tasks can be even automated through extensions.
I'll have to look into that definitely because I have a couple ideas on my own that if I had an extension, it could simplify my life. To get back to this topic, so you learn a lot during working with this team of very talented individuals. So what's the story? Why did you decide to leave this team? Or
I started to work remotely. And I just moved to a different country. I moved to a different company to be able to work remotely. This is how I started my own team, I would say. This is about the time I had just one person in my team. And by that went, I had like 5 people reporting to me, including Data Analysts and data governance engineers. It's a hard experience to, going from like individual to like being a manager. It's very different areas of responsibilities.
yeah, I can see that. Do you have how many years of experience did you have when you had your first direct report?
If you're gonna count all of it, I think about like 5 or 6.
5 or 6. How did you think about the transition? Like, how was the transition for you to go from individual contributor to manager? And also, are there things you think you would like to do differently today?
I think the hardest thing to learn for me was that it actually took me a long time to be able to do the things I'm doing right now at the level I'm doing them and at the speed I'm doing them. So I'm building dashboards very, very fast. I can build a dashboard in just a couple of minutes, and it's got to look good. If the data is good. But at the same time, I just had lots of practice. I mean, I built lots of different dashboards. I've been working with in this field a lot. And the hardest thing for you as a manager is to understand that people you're working with are actually not supposed to do it at the same level you are doing it. I mean, you can't expect them to build the dashboards as fast as you're doing it. You just can't, because again, they need the same practice. They need the same amount of dashboards to be built to be on this level. So yeah, it was a bit hard for me to understand that. I mean, it took me some time to understand that you actually have to give people time, and you always have to, like, if you feel that it still takes, for example, too much time than you expected it to, just talk to them and ask them to show you how they're actually doing this task. Because from your experience, you can again understand if there is something, not very optimal, or maybe there is some kind of shortcuts you've learned. And another one, I'm very bad at giving the responsibility. Not giving responsibility, but I can say I'm kind of anxious person. And so I prefer to keep everything under control. So when it's not under me, when I'm not in the discussion, I'm like, oh my God, something bad is going to happen. So again, I mean, I'm learning. I can say that I'm on top of it right now, but this is again one of the things I was trying to do, and I wish I understood earlier that you have to give people this responsibility. You have to allow them to do something on their own without controlling and managing them, and just let them make their own mistakes, let them make their own discussions, their own processes, etc. So just try to give some space.
Do you have an example of an instance where, during that first experience as a manager, of an instance where you think maybe you should have let a bit more space to your direct report to do the work, or maybe that your expectation of how quick or well the job should have been done was a bit too high?
I can say that it was just maybe a bit too high. We have this sync, we have this regular planning, and we decide we have to do these kind of fixes in the dashboard. And I'm asking how long do you think it's going to take? And they're like, this many hours. And I'm like, maybe faster now. So, and then, you understand that sometimes you don't understand the specifics. Sometimes you don't understand when it's actually going to take a person to do something like that. So again, it's more about, more about discussing these kind of things together. And with responsibility, I think I noticed this one. We were on the discussion together, and we're trying to gather requirements from our stakeholders. And it was not my responsibility, but my employee responsibility to gather these kind of requirements. And I noticed that I started to, I just started not to interrupt, but to add some of my perspective into this discussion. And then we went with a call. I was like, no, it was probably not as good. So I talked to my to my BI developer, and she said, no, it was actually fine. I mean, I was happy that you've asked it because it was kind of important for the discussion. I was like, okay, at least, I mean, there was no conflict inside, but I've decided to, for the next and future calls, I decided to step aside.
I think I can kind of guess by what you're saying, but there are different types of managers out there. There are managers that like to micromanage. There are managers that like to give a little bit more responsibilities. So in your opinion, what is the most effective type of management? Is it, like you were saying, giving ownership to the person, or is it giving a bit more freedom, but also overseeing quite a bit?
That's again a very good question. One thing I learned is that it actually depends on the person, not on the manager, but the people you're working with. Some people need this kind of space, and they work better when they have space. Some people need more guidance. I mean, it's not even usually that juniors need more guidance and seniors need more space. Sometimes it's not even on the grades level. Sometimes it's more about the way people work with at the end of the day. So I think the most important thing here is not it can be, finding an approach to different people based on the way they work and based on the way they actually perform. And at the same time, always have an open discussion. So again, one thing we've been doing pretty frequently, we had this feedback sessions once a month, and we tried to keep them as open as we could. They can give me some feedback, both positive and negative, and I can give it to them as well. And we just agreed that it's going to be on this call. I mean, it's of course, shouldn't be, like some personal aggressive feedback, but something which can actually help us to work better. Like, I wish you did something differently in this situation, or maybe next time we can learn from this situation, in the future.
It's very clear in your opinion. Like, I like your insight on the part where it really depends on the person you are managing. Because, originally I always thought like it's better to give the opportunity for people to shine and not to micromanage them. But in reality, in my experience, at least when I was mentoring juniors or when I had interns, it depends on the person. Some people, they just like from the get-go, they are very autonomous. You can give them the task, they will find a solution. Other people need a bit more guidance. They will get stuck for hours or days, and you will need to say, hey, come see me. What is happening? They won't tell anything.
Let's
And you,
talk.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk actually. How is this going? So yeah, very insightful. Getting back to the topic at hand. So you are managing this team. Remind us the scope of your team at that company, what type of work you were doing.
So we started with working with just like BI and like BI development, like dashboard development. We were trying to promote all kind of like BI governance initiatives, like let's create documentation for the dashboards. Let's keep all the data models for dashboards in one place. Let's add tests and data quality checks to the dashboards. Let's certify them and like etc. So there were like everything about like BI governance. Then about the same time, they understood that we also need some data governance processes connecting to the dashboards as well and connecting to everything we have with data. So we hired a data governance engineer to my team as well. I mean, it was probably, not the best fit from like the job's perspective, but I was just so excited to learn about data governance. So we were like, okay, let's just put everything here. Well, yeah, and we also have a web analyst because, again, it felt close to BI, but at the same time, not very much BI. And the idea behind it was that we had some dashboards and we had some requests from stakeholders, which could have actually been solved through Google Analytics. You can just go to Google Analytics, you go to the internal reporting where, and you do the things you do, or like to Amplitude, like whatever web analytics tool you're using. And so we decided to, again, to move it together to like bridge the gap. For example, we get a new stakeholder and they're asking for some kind of web analytics data. We would think first that maybe we should not create a dashboard, but start with the instrument in mind, with like Amplitude or or Google Analytics, stuff like that.
Yeah, I understand. So at some point you had requests coming in, but building a dashboard is actually it's a long process. It's not that easy to build a dashboard. But if you have like a tool like Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics or whatever, it's easier to have someone directly crunch the numbers there and give the results to the stakeholder than trying to build it from scratch, because then you have to ingest the data, do a new model, and do a dashboard that will fit your stakeholders' needs. Yeah. And so to continue a bit, after the company, or did you still working for that company today?
No, I again got a very exciting opportunity to try to build all BI process from the scratch, and I never had this experience before. And because
Excuse
at
me, for
first,
BI?
all BI process, all BI dashboards from the scratch. So I was like pretty much really just like creating dashboards for part of a company where I didn't have dashboards before. So like my first BI career started in the company where all BI processes were already established ones. So it was, it was clear how to work, like everybody was using it was just like, like all BI processes were already established. They had BI system, they had all the documentations, all kind of things. But I moved to a different company when I tried to recreate these kind of processes, because the case there was a little bit different. We had lots of data analysts who were building dashboards for the past 8 years. And we just got to a point when we have so many dashboards, but nobody knows what's inside them because nobody was like governing this part. So this was, again, a very nice experience to understand like how to work with this chaos and how to bring this chaos to some kind of order and systemize everything. Again, like building tables, building dashboards about dashboards, my favorite part. So yeah, and now they're creating dashboards from the scratch, and it was important for me to try something like that with my own hands. So I'm again building dashboards with my own hands, building data models. This is how I learned dbt recently. And yeah, I think again it was a very just interesting interesting part I've never tried before.
It's very interesting because you mentioned DBT, but I would not think naturally you would be using this kind of tools. So would you say the type of work you're doing is SQL heavy? Are you using a lot of SQL?
Yeah, of course. I mean, currently I work with finance and HR, and if you've ever worked with finance, you know that data in finance is always complex. It's never easy. You get tons of different tables. There are tons of ways how you can match it, combine it, etc. And so I first got introduced to DBT like at my previous company, and I just found it so easy to use and so easy to support, because you just have like one master table and you can reuse in several dashboards. And in case you have to change anything, you can change it in one master table. You don't have to go to each dashboard and fix it. The business logic is very clear. You can add all kinds of data quality tests inside. I mean, I think it's just very, very easy to use. I mean, and it helps to, you know, like support a better data quality and support a better even like data governance. I mean, you know how everything is calculated and you can rely on these master data sources. So yeah, when I moved to this company, we also like agreed that probably DBT can be a good choice. And it saved me so many times already, especially with like data tests. Even some simple things, you know, like tests for duplicates, for null values, for unique values, something very, very simple. But I mean, you at least you can catch these errors before they're in the production, before they're in the dashboard. So yeah, just turned out that I'm a DBT fan as well.
It's incredible because DBT just emerges, in my opinion, in the last 3 years, especially in more technical, well, classical technical communities like data engineering, MLOps. They talk about a lot about DBT, and yeah, very glad to see that it's used by BI engineers and also like experienced data analysts. Well, since we are on the topic, lots of people are trying to get into the data world, especially data analysis, because they like building. When you build a dashboard, it's very visual. Yeah, I think it appeals to a lot of people. And what would be your advice in terms of tooling for someone looking to get into the field or someone inside the field but looking to upskill?
If you're talking pure tools, I would say, I mean, SQL is a must-have. Even when people say right now, oh, you have ChatGPT, you don't have to learn SQL. No, you have to. I mean, otherwise you would never understand what actually ChatGPT gives you. And sometimes, you know, you can think of like some better solutions, or you can think of some ways it can be optimized, and ChatGPT wouldn't. I mean, it's better to know at least the basics of how it works. Also, any kind of BI tool, I would start with Tableau or Power BI. I mean, I'm Tableau ambassador, so I'm all about Tableau. For me, it's the best tool in the world. Honestly, I mean, I just love it. But these two are like the most complex BI tools. And if you learn how to use them, you can learn any hour tool in just a couple of hours, because the rest of them are way more simple. Like, for example, if you're talking about Looker Studio, it's way more simple than Tableau Power BI. So it's just like these two. Again, when we're talking about tools, I'm more focused to BI part rather than like data analytics. But if you're talking about pure tools, SQL, something from BI, I would also add Excel, honestly, because I mean, you should know how to create a pivot table in Excel. I mean, you don't have to know, you know, how to build some cool functions or macros or something like that, but at least you should be you should be able to use it freely, you know, to look at it and to look at Excel and make something very, very simple. Again, about tools, I would suggest learning some basics of Git and understand how versioning works, because at the end of the day, this is also some kind of thing which would help you to support all the data you're creating, to support the data quality, the dashboard quality, like just the quality of your work. So I think the Git part is often missed from these discussions, and I think it's very important to learn at least the basics of it. I would also add, if you're talking about like current tools as DBT, to again, DBT, they have lots of free learning courses, and at least to understand the concept of how data transformations work. Because again, we have DBT, we have SQL Mesh, we have many other tools which are doing the same things. Again, it's more about a way to understand why do we need it and how to work with it. Airflow, probably, or Dexter, something with orchestration. Again, more about to understand how it works, why do we need it, and how it can be applied to a job. I mean, it doesn't mean that you honestly you'll definitely use all these tools at your workplace. Most probably not. But I mean, it's nice to understand how it works and how it can be applied to your to your job. Yeah, I think maybe, we can talk about Python. I personally don't really use Python that much. I prefer all kind of like no-code tools. So even for like, for example, orchestration, you can use cron schedulers or you can use Airflow. To get the data from any kind of system, again, you can use Python and some kind of packages to extract data from them, or you can use tools like Fivetran or Airtable. I prefer tools. But again, to understand how it works and that's how you can create a dashboard, not just with ready-to-use data, but from the system, put it to the database, transform it, and then put it to the dashboard. I think it's important to understand to have at least one tool in mind you can use to go through this process.
Yeah, the end-to-end process from the source data to the dashboard, basically, and cover everything inside with the quality and governance associated.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be the best at it. Just understand like how it works, at least. Just have a general understanding how data you're working with in the dashboard. Where did it actually come from?
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, you have a big community on Telegram, more than 27,000 followers. And you also have 4 online courses. So you must have seen a lot. First, I don't know where to start. Maybe you can start us off from what you're seeing, like the students, what the students are actually trying to learn, what are they struggling with.
I mean, I think we've talked about like technical tools already. So yeah, these are usually the things they're trying to learn. People are trying to learn. I probably, like if you're talking about courses, most of my courses are about dashboard design, data visualization. Pretty much about dashboards, I would say. And one of the things I see a lot when people they just learn lots of things about tools, but they don't think about the actual use cases and why they're actually creating it. So I get this a lot with the dashboards when like students send me the dashboard and it's just, can you please have a look? Is it okay? I mean, some people even on LinkedIn, they just send me the dashboard. I would love to hear your opinion. Here is the dashboard. And that's it. And I'm like, what is dashboard is about? Like, I mean, what kind of problem is it trying to solve? Because without understanding what this dashboard is supposed to do, what job is it trying to solve, what solutions it's supposed to support, I can't understand if it's a good dashboard. Because the basics, the main component of a successful dashboard is still understanding what kind of problems this dashboard is supposed to solve and in what solutions, in what processes it is supposed to help the stakeholders. And this is like 70% of the success of a dashboard. It can work poorly. I mean, it can look bad. It can have problems with like color, design, layout, etc. But if it at least solves the problem, this is already like 70% of success, honestly. So I would say that every time you're creating something, it can be any kind of dashboard, report, statistical analysis, like whatever you're doing with data, first think like why you're doing it and what it actually is supposed to do. Like how is it supposed to help the business? What kind of problem you're trying to solve. And if stakeholders come to you and ask you for some kind of data expert, the first thing you have to do is to ask them why. Why do they need it? What are they going to do with it? What is their final business solution here?
Very insightful. It's usually people seems on the internet when you're talking about data analysis, it seems to focus on how pretty the dashboard is, but your take is not. It's more about what question are you trying to solve using this dashboard than how beautiful it looks.
I mean, beauty is of course important. I mean, I would say that it's like 70% the job this dashboard is trying to do. 20% is data visualizations and 10% is layout, UX features, how it actually, like if it's actually easy to use the dashboard, if you understand how it works, etc., like the prettiness of it. And they're not talking about data, because data, it's still 100%. I mean, if you have a data with poor quality, I mean, even a beautiful dashboard won't help here. But I think like if you're going from a solution, because I actually saw lots of dashboards created by data analysts, which would look awful, but people use them a lot because they solve a very specific problem. They help them with their day-to-day problems and day-to-day solutions. And yes, it can be adjusted, but I mean, 70% of the job is already done. I mean, it helps them with whatever they're doing. Yeah, I think you should always start with like the question in mind why they're actually doing it.
Very. Recently I had a talk with someone that told me they are looking this year, it's actually their resolution or objective, if you prefer, to create online courses. And you have built four of them, with one of them that is free, but still has thousands of people that enroll in it. What advice do you have? What is your process to create the courses, and what advice do you have for people trying to do the same?
First, the most complex thing is probably find a platform. So I'm using like a Russian-speaking platform, which is called Stepik, and this is just a platform where you can easily create new courses. So we have all built-in features. And if you're trying to build an online course, usually starting with a platform is way easier when building your own platform. Because I know many people who are trying to build their own learning management systems, they're trying to build their own websites, and it's usually way more complex when trying to use some original platform. So yeah, I think the first thing is to try to find a platform, then to try to find like what you actually have to say. I think the success of part of my courses was that I was first who started to talk about it. So for example, there are not so many courses on Tableau on this platform, and I was just one of the creators for the like Tableau course as an example. Yeah, so I think this is kind of it. And like people ask me like, why do you actually create this kind of courses? But I think personally, I just like teaching people for some reason. I think I very much enjoy my students sending me their feedback, their work. And I had so many students who sent me, like some feedback on, I actually got my dream job after this course. I came to the management with like a newly modified dashboard, and they're like, oh, okay, so you can do BI now, you can do dashboard design now. And yeah, I think it's very inspiring to see these kind of things. At the same time, I learn a lot from my students because, again, some of the solutions they create, I would never think of it. Sometimes I see something they create in the dashboard, I'm like, oh, that's good, I'm going to steal it. I'm going to steal it and use it my own ones. Yeah. And I would probably not suggest to do it just for, like pure financial purposes. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, if you don't enjoy talking about it, I mean, nobody's going to listen. Nobody's going to be willing to learn anything from you.
Definitely, I can understand. So, will AI replace BI engineers, data analysts, everyone?
Oh, no. I don't honestly think that it's going to replace us, but I think it's important for us to learn how to use these kind of tools and integrate them to our day-to-day activities. I understand that in some companies, it's still prohibited to use some of the AI tools. And I mean, again, if you're not able to use AI for your day-to-day work activities, at least try to utilize it for non-working activities, what I'm saying. So yeah, again, I don't think it's going to replace us fully because first of all, there is always going to be the thing that people usually believe our people and they trust other people. And so we always need some kind of, like check from somebody else. Like, is this number correct? Does this actually make any sense? And but at the same time, AI can help us a lot and speed up our work. So we definitely have to learn how to use it. I use it for writing all kinds of SQL queries, for optimizing it, for adjusting it, etc. I use it for writing all kinds of texts. Recently, I started to use it like create a ticket about this and that. And we create like a short support ticket because I usually just, I mean, English is not my native language, that is why sometimes, it takes me more time to write this kind of message by myself rather than asking ChatGPT to do it. So yeah, text SQL about dashboards. I don't actually use it for dashboard creation. I mean, you can create pretty decent dashboards, like HTML dashboards, especially, for example, with Claude. But at the same time, these kind of dashboards are usually like one-time dashboards. This is not something you can support in production. This is not something you can give access to, view it, support of all kinds of like data transformations, etc. Can be good like a one-time solution or some of kind of like a very specific solution, but it's usually not on a production level. Again, if we're talking about dashboards, one thing I use in it is for brainstorming. Again, what kind of dashboards can be useful for this specific function? What kind of business processes this domain has, this function has, what we're actually doing, and what kind of dashboards can be helpful for them currently or in the future, or if our current dashboards actually supporting the needs they're having. So it's more about like brainstorming.
If I understand correctly, AI is not going to replace BI engineers or data analysts soon, but at least it makes you, in your particular case, very productive by writing tickets, helping you with SQL queries. You know the syntax, but you are using it just to go a bit faster and in all other type of use cases. Do you have a preferred LLM? Do you have a preferred AI tool like, I don't know, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude?
I personally use only ChatGPT and Claude. From my experience, more often I use just ChatGPT. I don't know, maybe I just like got used to it. I actually never tried Gemini. Maybe it's good. Maybe I have to try it, So ChatGPT is pretty good with some kind of very simple requests and in general with all kind of requests. But what I like about Claude is creating pictures, creating long texts, and revising long texts. So it's more about like creative work, I would say, because ChatGPT writes bad texts. I mean, it can write a structure, but it cannot write long, good text if this is something you need. And with the pictures, the same thing. I very much prefer the way Claude makes it when ChatGPT. Yeah, I think these two, these two are the main ones.
Yeah, definitely. I prefer ChatGPT personally, but I agree with you. It's very good at structure, but the long text, I always rewrite everything. It's
But
just better that way.
I have had like one very funny experience with ChatGPT. As I already mentioned, I'm working with finance, and finance data is extremely complex. I mean, it's really hard to understand how everything works because there are like tons of tables. You don't know how it actually is supposed to work. And there are lots of like hidden transactions you don't understand, like tons of things. And so I was trying to build some very, not simple, but very commonly used financial report. I was just trying to automate it in the dashboard. And I was trying to work with ChatGPT to create the query to do that. And it couldn't. I mean, it was like useless. So I went to Google, I Googled it, like how to create, not how to create, but like this kind of report in this ERP system, etc., etc. And I found the blog of a guy who created this exact thing I needed, like one-to-one. It was in a different SQL, but I moved it like to our SQL, so it was all good. And it just like, I found it so interesting that I heard that lots of young people, like always like Gen Alpha or like whatever, they actually losing the ability to Google something because they just got so used to ChatGPT. They don't know how to Google anything, like really try to search for something. And I was like, oh my God, that's a very important skill still. Because there are so many things on the internet which is actually outside of the ChatGPT scope, outside of AI scope, but they exist on the internet, and sometimes it's better to try to search it like old school way and find the solution by yourself.
I agree. Yeah. I talked with someone working at a marketing agency, and from all the talk about ChatGPT or Gemini replacing Google, actually, still 90% of traffic still comes from Google. So I think Googling is still a skill to have in 2026.
Yeah, I also saw that, like AI actually reaches, like all these AI agents will reach only like 70% of web pages on the internet or something. I'm not 100% sure about the exact percent, but Google reaches more
Yeah,
comparing to AI. Still, sometimes
it's
you have to Google.
understandable. 70% of pages. Yeah, I will have to look it
Let
up.
me
I
let me
didn't
double
know about
check
that.
it. Yeah, I'm not sure about the number, but I remember that for Google it was way higher than to like AI, ChatGPT, Claude.
Okay, I will have to check it. Anastasia, is there something we should have talked about and then we didn't?
I think we've covered many important things here.
How could people contact you?
Oh, LinkedIn, yeah. But if this podcast is going to be on LinkedIn or YouTube, I mean, just write in the comments if there's anything you want to discuss. And yeah, my LinkedIn is open. But if you follow or if you're trying to contact me, please add some kind of message inside. So I understand like what is this about.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me today. And yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.